if it's going to be the $10 eggs in the grocery store or the student loan payment, I need my eggs. Welcome back to Wine and Chill. I'm Stephanie, your favorite recovering lawyer, and today we are doing our January student loan forgiveness update. And because I failed miserably at dry January, I'm trying to do a dry-ish February. For those of you that are new, every month, once a month, I talk about my journey to pay off my six-figure student loans, and along with that, we have been going through Biden's student loan debt forgiveness plan, which is now on its way this month to the Supreme Court. So there are some updates. Some unsurprising, but still very frustrating updates. And then we are going to talk about workers' rights and how the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, is doing something to hopefully help the majority of us, the 99%, we the workers. Let's get into our agenda. First, we're going to go through how much I paid in December. Every student loan payoff update is retroactive. So since this is the January update, this will be what I paid in December, and the February update will come sometime at the end of this month. I really wanted to see if maybe we could do it February 28th, which is the day oral arguments for the student loan forgiveness plan are going to be happening in the Supreme Court. So we'll see. Hopefully I can get that in one day. So that is up to date. Then we're going to talk about the FTC and non-compete agreements for a second. And then lastly, we will do our student loan forgiveness update, which is that 170 Republican lawmakers are filing an amicus brief against student loan forgiveness. Again, unsurprising, but still annoying. Let's start with what I paid off in the month of December. So if you're new, my starting student loan balance on February 14th, 2020, which is when I started my student loan payoff journey, was a whopping $304,680.17 trifling cents, which is inclusive of about $75,000 of predatory interest, aka money I did not borrow, which I have an update about the interest in 1 second. In the month of December, I paid $2,000, which, having transitioned over into full-time content creation in July, this is the most I've paid in a month, which I was very proud of myself, which leaves my remainder balance at the beginning of January was $165,798.97 trifling cents. On the screen, you're seeing January and December's payment because I forgot at the end of December to take a screenshot of that, so you'll see the same screenshot. As you can see, in January, I only paid $525, but we'll get to that in our February update, since this is the January update. So about that interest, I wanted to bring this up, which I'm going to be looking down so that way my personal information is not all over the internet. But essentially, if you pay your student loans, and if you have federal student loans, they're currently under forbearance, so if you can't afford it right now, don't worry about that, but put it in your budget to make a plan for when we get kicked back into repayment. I have been paying mine since 2020, before the pandemic started, and then student loan forbearance kicked in, which not having to pay any new interest has helped a lot. However, it has done nothing for my old interest, that original $75K of money I didn't borrow. So there is a form that your student loan service provider will send you. They should have sent it to you by now. We're in the beginning of February. It is Form 1098E. And essentially, this form shows you how much student loan interest you paid in the prior year. Listen to this. So, I paid last year, according to my Form 1098E, which I marked down. It'll be on the screen because I can't remember right now off the top of my head exactly how much I paid total. It is around $30,000. The exact number will pop up on the screen in post-edit for me. Out of that total number that I paid towards my student loans in the year of 2022, guess how much of that was interest? I'll tell you. $15,809.33 trifling cents went to interest of my hard-earned pennies that I paid down towards my student loans. And I feel away. I'm laughing so I don't break anything. I feel away that more than half of my payment last year went towards the interest. And mind you, this is with forbearance. Forbearance, the only thing it did was ensure that we didn't get charged more predatory interest of money we didn't borrow. Which is why forbearance, to be honest, I will always be grateful for it, because without forbearance, I will have owed probably another $20,000 just in interest. Anybody still arguing that our current student loan system, which the highest student loan interest rate I have is over 7%, the largest I had was 10% from Sally Mae, anyone still arguing that it's not predatory does not live in this version of reality and can argue with themselves. There is one section of Biden's student loan forgiveness plan that is addressing future interest. However, nothing is addressing the past interest, and it looks like nothing will be addressing the past interest, and that is largely the problem. The interest is the problem. The predatory cost of education should not cost as high as it does. We're going to get into how it has grown over the years in a second. Coupled with these wild interest rates, which are set by Congress, it's a catastrophe. It is a catastrophe. So with that, let us move into something positive before we get into the sad story of the negative, which is the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, is proposing a new law which will ban all non-compete agreements. We've talked about non-compete agreements on this channel a few times. Specifically, we've talked about them in general when working for tech, when working for any job. A non-compete agreement is either a separate contract or a clause in your current existing employment agreement, which states you cannot get a similar job and use your similar skills for X amount of time. It is to the benefit solely of corporations and is wildly and sadly abused in the United States. Approximately 1 in 5 Americans or people working in the United States are under non-compete agreements, which is about 30 million people. And what's interesting is people usually think non-compete agreements only occur in highly specialized fields, such as biomedical research, but non-compete agreements have been found even in minimum wage jobs, such as back in the day when Jimmy John's used to have a chokehold on my college life. Jimmy John's had non-compete agreements for their sandwich makers. After threats of being sued, they finally dropped the non-compete in those agreements, but non-competes are wildly abused across the United States. So the FTC is trying to push back against that. Look at our taxpayer dollars working for us. Super excited for us. And the FTC wants to ban all non-compete agreements. One of the interesting things about the FTC, they have a public rulemaking period, which during this period, the public is allowed to comment and state why they are in favor or against the proposed new law, the proposed new legislation. And that current comment period is open right now. So if you would like to participate in this lovely experiment that we have of democracy, highly recommend you make your taxpayer dollars work for you and leave a public comment as to why banning all non-competes is not only pro-worker, but also ensures that people are able to earn a living wage and take their talents where they want. What I find really interesting as a lawyer, I have more access. When I've seen non-compete agreements in the past, when I used to work in tech, they were in every single one of my employment agreement, I would push back. The skills that I have as a lawyer are largely transferable. I can use them at any company. It has nothing to do with confidential information of that particular startup or tech company I worked for. And usually they would change it or they would alter it so where it wasn't so stringent that I couldn't get a job in a similar tech company. However, because I'm a lawyer and I have access to that, I was always understood to me that most people, unless you know to look out for a non-compete agreement in your contract, in your employment agreement, you don't necessarily know that it is there. While you're looking for a new job, make sure Control F on the contract on your computer and just type in non-compete to see if it's in there and flag that for the recruiter that you're working with and let them know, hey, I don't like it. Non-competes at worst, I've seen some non-competes that have been challenged in court where the non-compete clause does not allow the employee to work in the same field for over 2 years. That's wild. In this current system that we live in, the only way to buy groceries and expensive eggs and expensive grapes is if you work and if you have money. And essentially, by corporations doing this, they are limiting people's access to be able to care for themselves. So highly recommend you hop over to ftc.gov. I will leave the pinned comment. So that way you can go ahead and leave a public comment. It will take you 5 minutes. Let's hop into our student loan updates. So the big important date, February 28th, that is when the Supreme Court will be hearing oral arguments for the 2 cases which have gotten consolidated into one case. And both of those cases are challenging the validity of Biden's student loan forgiveness plan. Our update, happens to do with the majority of Republican congressional leaders, 170 of them to be exact. So when something goes to the Supreme Court, people, organizations, other lawmakers, nonprofits, entities are allowed to file amicus briefs. So an amicus curiae, or essentially an amicus brief, is when an individual organization who is not party to the legal case, but is very much interested in the legal case, is allowed to offer information, expertise, or insight to essentially influence the bearing of that case. So with that, 128 House Republicans and nearly all of the Republican senators last Friday filed an amicus brief with the Supreme Court opposing student loan forgiveness, under the guise that it is the legislative branch, so Congress and the House of Representatives, that it is their power whether or not student loan forgiveness should actually occur. Mind you, the majority of these Republican senators and Congress members have a college degree. And I think it would be really interesting to look at the statistics on that and how much they themselves paid for college. So these stats that we're going to go through are directly from Congress themselves, from Congressional Research Service, which is informing the legislative debate since 1914. So according to Congressional Research Service, 93.8% of Congress members in the House of Representatives have a college degree, and 100% of current senators have a college degree. Now, in terms of their age, the 117th Congress was 58.4 years for the representatives and 64.3 years old for senators. So let's say the average age for congressional leaders is around 60. Now, if the average age is around 60, that means the majority of them have graduated college around 1983. Do you want to know what the tuition was in 1983? And this is adjusted for inflation. According to the Education Data Initiative, as shown on the screen, adjusted for inflation, the average tuition for 4 years was between $4,500 and $20,000. The large majority of our congressional representatives went to school for little to nothing. Very cheap, largely because the government believed in education and largely subsidized education, something which essentially the student loan forgiveness plan by the Biden administration is trying to course correct. According to the Educational Data Initiative, since 1990, the average tuition and fee rates have increased 130% after adjusting for inflation. I think it's very interesting and super hypocritical that the largest voices, again, the majority of Republican leaders, have now filed an amicus curiae brief against essentially affordable education when they themselves received affordable education. Man, that itemized receipt of where our taxpayer money is going would be so appreciated right now, because the majority of our taxpayer money is not going to education, which is why the bill has fallen on regular people. I highly recommend going through the list of representatives and senators who filed briefs against student loan forgiveness to see if your representative or senator is listed there. And I say this every time we do an update. I personally will not and do not qualify for student loan forgiveness, even though I received a Pell Grant all 4 years of college. As a practicing lawyer in New York who worked in tech, I make above the income cap that they instituted. The income cap was $125,000, which in New York is not a lot of money. I don't care what anyone says. When you make $130, but you owe $330, the math is not mathing. But with that, even though I do not qualify, I still am 1000% in favor of student loan forgiveness. It is unfair for people to essentially have their lives completely ruined by this large amount of debt, particularly when the interest, as shown by me today, my interest that I paid last year is more than half of what I actually paid. More than half of what I paid didn't go to the principal balance. A large amount of this debt is money people did not borrow. It's just corporate greed. To leave you on something on the bright side, while 170 Republican lawmakers filed amicus briefs against student loan forgiveness, there has been overwhelming support from many other constituencies, many other interest groups, as well as state legislators in favor of student loan forgiveness. So the amicus briefs are flowing. People are for it. People are against it. People are getting all their thoughts out. And I would say February 28th is going to be very interesting. To temper everyone's expectations, I'm still of the opinion that sadly, I don't believe the Supreme Court is going to uphold the student loan forgiveness plan because our Supreme Court is largely conservative, and unfortunately, apparently, the conservative voting bloc doesn't agree with, relief for degular people. We will see on February 28th how the oral arguments go, and then likely the opinion won't come out until May, June. To be honest, the Supreme Court can be excruciatingly slow to issue opinions, so it might take even longer than that. And as a reminder, student loan forbearance is not going to end until at least 60 days after the end of litigation. So after the Supreme Court ruling is finalized, or 60 days after June 30th, 2023. So either way, we do have a little bit of time. I highly recommend at least starting to write in your budget what your minimum payment will be, so that way it's not a shock to your system when unfortunately repayment kicks in eventually. For me, what's interesting, we're in February. So February 14th, 2020 is when I started my student loan payoff journey. So next week, it'll officially be 3 years of me paying off my student loans. In 3 years, I've paid over $150,000. I've learned a lot of lessons. Honestly, this is the most, positive I've felt about it in a long time, even though I still owe so much. Be largely due to the fact that I'm slowly letting them go. Aidvantage, who is my current student loan service provider, Fed Loans sold me off to Aidvantage. They're not letting it go, but I'm emotionally letting them go. I'm still paying them, of course, but it's not taking up as much headspace as it used to. And that's largely due to the fact that I have other things to do. I can't control it. This series has been going on for 2 years on my channel. So y'all have seen me almost cry. Maybe I've cried at some of them. I don't think I've cried yet. But y'all have seen me depressed, high anxiety over it, stressed out, trying to I think the largest payment I made was $7,000 in 1 month. That's because I had a bonus. So I included that in there. I've done the work. I think I've come to a level of peace with my student loans, to be honest. And maybe that's just today. And it's largely because having gone through this journey for 3 years, I realize that it will get paid when it gets paid. I'm just chipping away at it, what I can. And if it's going to be the $10 eggs in the grocery store or the student loan payment, I need my eggs. $10 for a carton of eggs is objectively wild. Yeah, it's going to be the eggs. I do enjoy my eggs with my breakfast, with my steel cut oats, some blueberries, and some coffee. Let me know how y'all are feeling. How's your student loan payoff journey? And let me know what else y'all would like to discuss about the student loans. In terms of public service, PSLF, public service loan forgiveness, that is separate from this. So I always refer anybody to go check out Debt Free Gonna Be on Instagram. She has a free PSLF worksheet that you can work there. She recently, shout out to Nika, she recently got her student loans forgiveness after working in public service for over a decade. So highly recommend if you have PSLF, go ahead and head over there because that is an area of student loan forgiveness that quite honestly, I don't know too much about. On that note, let us see what happens February 28th. I'll catch you all in the next video.